You probably haven't thought about this in years, but do you remember that metallic jingle of house keys bouncing against your chest as you walked home alone after school? The way they felt cold and heavy on that scratchy shoelace around your neck? You'd unlock that front door to complete silence. No parents, just the hum of the refrigerator and maybe the faint smell of this morning's burnt toast still hanging in the air. You'd drop your backpack with a thud and immediately worry, did my little brother remember not to put aluminum foil in the microwave again? We basically raised ourselves back then. And honestly, that was just the beginning of how weird growing up in the 80s really was. Because while we had this incredible freedom that kids today can't even imagine, we were also living through some of the most bizarre, anxiety-inducing, and downright dangerous childhood experiences in modern history. Stick around, because what I'm about to show you will make you question how any of us survived. Flashback 1. Latchkey Kids and Unsupervised Freedom. Picture this. You're 8 years old, trudging up the front steps with a backpack that weighs more than you do. Fumbling with those keys that have left a permanent dent in your collarbone. You turn the lock, push open the door, and nothing. Just that hollow echo of your own footsteps on linoleum. The first thing you do? Crank up the TV volume way too loud. Not because you wanted to watch anything specific, but because the silence felt too big, too empty. Then you'd shuffle to the kitchen, stand on your tiptoes to reach the SpaghettiOs, and hope you remembered how the can opener worked. By 1982, over 3 million kids aged 6 to 13 were doing exactly this every single day. We were called latchkey kids, and we wore that key around our necks like some kind of badge of independence. Except here's the thing. You knew your parents were late when the streetlights flickered on and your stomach was still growling empty. You'd peek through those heavy curtains, watching other families' warm kitchen windows glow yellow, wondering if you should call your mom at work or just make another bowl of cereal for dinner. We learned to be tough, sure, but we also learned what it felt like to be responsible for keeping ourselves alive at an age when most kids today aren't even allowed to walk to the mailbox alone. But just when we were getting used to being alone, the milk cartons started talking to us. Flashback 2. Milk Carton Kids and Stranger Danger. There you were, pouring Lucky Charms into your bowl at 7 a.m. And suddenly, 2 grainy black and white faces were staring back at you from the milk carton. Johnny Gosh, Eugene Martin. Their names burned into your brain before you'd even had your first bite of cereal. It started in September 1984, when an Iowa dairy decided to turn breakfast into a daily reminder that kids just disappeared. Within months, over 700 dairies across the country were printing missing children's faces on milk cartons, complete with those haunting hotline numbers in bold red letters. You'd sit there, spooning marshmallow shapes into your mouth, studying those pixelated photos and wondering, what did they do wrong? Did they talk to a stranger? Did they walk home alone like I do? The worst part wasn't just seeing the faces, it was seeing a new face, because that meant the last kid was probably never coming home. Your parents started asking weird questions. Who drove you to school? Did anyone follow you? Suddenly, every windowless van looked suspicious. Every friendly neighbor became a potential threat. The playground felt different, like invisible eyes were always watching. We went from having total freedom to being terrified of our own shadows. All because breakfast had become a daily missing persons report. And the truly messed up part? Stranger abductions were incredibly rare, but nobody told us that. We just knew that somewhere out there, kids who looked just like us had vanished into thin air. Speaking of things that would horrify parents today, we literally couldn't escape cigarette smoke, even at 30,000 feet. Flashback 3. Smoking on planes and in restaurants. Remember that smell? That thick, stale cigarette funk that was just everywhere? It lived in restaurant carpets, hung in office waiting rooms, and somehow made airplane leather seats smell like a mixture of ash and someone's grandpa's jacket. You'd buckle your seatbelt for a family vacation, and the very first thing you'd see was that little yellow smoking sign clicking on right above your head. Flight attendants would actually walk down the aisle asking, "Smoking or non-smoking?" as if smoke gave a damn about invisible boundaries at 30,000 feet. Picture this. You're 7 years old, trapped in a metal tube for 4 hours, breathing in someone else's Marlboro lights while trying to color in your activity book. The non-smoking section was basically a joke, like having a peeing section in a swimming pool, as critics used to say. That acrid cloud just drifted wherever it wanted. And restaurants? Forget about it. Your family would sit down for dinner, and within minutes your eyes were watering from the guy chain-smoking camels 3 tables over. Your chicken nuggets literally tasted like cigarettes. We basically got secondhand smoked into adulthood, and nobody thought twice about it. The craziest part? This wasn't just restaurants and planes. Hospitals had smoking lounges. Hospitals, where sick people went to get better. We were living in a world where adults thought it was totally normal for kids to marinate in tobacco smoke during their Happy Meals. And while our lungs were filling with smoke, our dreams were filling with mushroom clouds. Flashback 4. Cold War Nightmares and Nuclear Drills. You're sitting cross-legged on the scratchy living room carpet, watching The Day After on your family's wood-paneled TV set. You're maybe 9 years old, and you're watching people's skin literally melt off their bodies in slow motion. Your mom's in the kitchen, making microwave popcorn like it's just another Tuesday night movie. But you're crying, really crying, because you just realized the world could end before your next birthday party. This wasn't some horror movie. This was primetime television that teachers actually showed in classrooms. Educational, they called it. Educational nightmare fuel. And then came the drills. Your teacher would suddenly stop explaining long division and announce, "Okay, everyone, shelter drill." You'd all file into the darkest, most suffocating hallway in the school, that weird basement corridor that smelled like old mop water and fear. You'd crouch against those cold concrete walls, knees pulled to your chest, listening to the fluorescent lights buzz overhead. The worst part wasn't the drill itself. It was lying there in the dark, pressed shoulder to shoulder with your classmates, genuinely wondering if this was practice or if the Soviet Union had actually pushed the button. Your heart would pound so hard you could hear it echoing off the walls. Kids today worry about pop quizzes and TikTok drama. We went to sleep every night wondering if we'd wake up to nuclear winter. We had slumber parties where we'd whisper about what we'd do if the missiles came during math class. Some kids kept emergency supplies under their beds, not for earthquakes or tornadoes, but for the end of civilization. But here's the weird thing. While we were terrified of global annihilation, we were also living through the most epic era of childhood entertainment ever created. Flashback 5. Arcades and the golden age of video games. But here's where things got amazing. While we were ducking nuclear drills by day, by night we were living in these magical caves of flashing lights and electronic chaos. You'd walk into the local arcade and immediately get hit with this symphony of sounds. The metallic cha-ching of quarters dropping into slots, the frantic waka 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 of Pac-Man chomping dots, and that devastating boop 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 death march when you finally got cornered by Blinky. Picture this. Your mom's next door at JCPenney buying you back to school clothes, and you've got exactly 45 minutes and $6 in quarters burning a hole in your pocket. You'd sprint straight to the Donkey Kong machine where there's already a line of kids 3 deep all clutching their tokens like sacred relics. The real magic happened when you finally got your turn. Those chunky joysticks felt solid in your sweaty palms. The buttons had this perfect click that modern controllers just can't match. And when you hit that high score, when those 3 precious initials, your initials, appeared on that glowing screen for everyone to see, You weren't just a kid anymore. You were a legend. If your initials stayed on that machine overnight, you'd show up the next day just to stare at them. ASS might have been hilarious, but JMK at the top of Galaga, that meant you were arcade royalty. Other kids would actually watch you play, studying your moves like you held the secrets of the universe. We spent more time in those smoky, carpeted game rooms than we did in our own bedrooms, and honestly, those were some of the happiest hours of our entire childhoods. But when the quarters ran out and the game shut down, we had to face the real world again. A world where staying connected meant hunting for working payphones. Flashback 6. Payphones and memorized numbers. When your bike chain snapped 3 miles from home, you didn't pull out a phone. You went hunting. Hunting for one of those heavy metal payphones that actually worked and wasn't covered in mysterious sticky substances or decorated with someone's phone number carved into the plastic. You'd approach that phone booth like it was a slot machine, praying the dial tone would actually dial. Then came the ritual, fishing through your pockets for quarters, feeling that satisfying clunk as each coin dropped into the slot, followed by that electronic beep, boop, beep as you punched in numbers you knew by heart. But here's the nightmare scenario. You're halfway through explaining to your mom why you need a ride, and suddenly that robotic voice cuts in.
Please insert 25 cents to continue your call.
Your stomach drops because you can hear your mom saying, "Hello, hello," while you're frantically digging through your pockets for more change. We didn't have contacts saved in our phones. We were the contacts. Your brain was basically a walking phone book. You knew your best friend's number, your grandma's number, your dad's work number, the pizza place, and probably half your class by heart. If you forgot someone's number, tough luck. You weren't calling them that day. And collect calls? You have a collect call from,
"Kyle, Mom, come pick me up at the mall. Will you accept the charges?"
We turned our names into entire messages, speaking as fast as humanly possible before the recording cut us off. We remembered phone numbers, but we couldn't remember where we left our lawn darts. Flashback 7. Dangerous toys. Lawn darts. Just saying those words probably makes your parents break out in a cold sweat. But for us, they were pure backyard magic. Picture this. You're at a family barbecue, and Uncle Dave pulls out this box of what were basically medieval weapons disguised as a children's game. You'd hear that satisfying thunk when a dart hit the plastic ring just right. But more often, you'd hear that terrifying clang as 4 pounds of metal-tipped death missile ricocheted off the concrete patio, missing your little cousin's head by maybe 3 inches. And somehow, no adult ever thought, hey, maybe giving kids metal spears and telling them to throw them as high as possible isn't the greatest idea. But that was the thrill, right? Every toss was like Russian roulette with your family's safety. You'd wind up, launch that dart into the sky, and immediately start calculating, is that coming down on the neighbor's car? On my sister? On me? And lawn darts weren't even the worst of it. We had chemistry sets with actual acids that could burn holes through skin. Cap guns that looked so real they'd get you arrested today. Toy arrows with legitimate sharp metal tips that we'd shoot at trees, fences, and occasionally each other. The Jarts box literally had a warning that said something like, "Not suitable for children under 16, while being sold in the toy section right next to Barbie dolls. A 7-year-old girl died in 1987, and suddenly everyone realized, oh wait, maybe lawn spears aren't toys. They got banned right before Christmas 1988, leaving thousands of families with deadly projectiles under their Christmas trees. Speaking of deadly things we just accepted as normal, who needs seatbelts when you've got the cargo area of a station wagon?
Flashback 8. No seatbelts, no problem. Road trips meant one thing:
claiming your territory in the back of the family station wagon. You'd spread out that scratchy plaid blanket in the cargo area, surrounded by suitcases and your mom's emergency snacks, watching the world blur past through that giant rear window like your own personal movie screen. The best spot was lying flat on your back, watching telephone wires dip and rise against the sky, counting cloud shapes while your dad took those highway curves way too fast. You'd slide from side to side with every turn, as you crashed into your siblings like human pinballs. Seatbelts were like vegetables, recommended by adults, rarely enforced. Most cars barely had enough working belts for everyone anyway. If you were lucky, you got to share a lap belt with your little brother, which meant neither of you was actually safe, but hey, at least you were buckled somewhere. Car seats? Those hard plastic torture devices were more like suggestions. Half the time, they weren't even bolted down properly. They'd tip over if you looked at them wrong. We spent entire cross-country trips standing up between the front seats, hanging over our parents' shoulders, totally oblivious to the fact that one sudden stop could turn us into tiny human projectiles. The freedom felt incredible, but looking back, we were basically playing Russian roulette every time we got in the car. Flashback 9. Deregulated cartoons and toy commercials. Saturday mornings had a sound. Snap, crackle, pop of cereal hitting milk, followed by 30 minutes of pure animated manipulation. But here's the thing. We didn't actually watch cartoons. We watched elaborate toy commercials disguised as entertainment. And we absolutely loved every second of it. Remember waking up at 6 a.m. just to catch Transformers? Those weren't stories about robots. They were half-hour Hasbro advertisements with epic theme songs. More than meets the eye, they'd sing, while showing you exactly which Optimus Prime toy you needed to beg your parents for. G.I. Joe, He-Man, My Little Pony. Every single show existed for one reason: to make you circle things in the Sears catalog with that stubby red crayon. You'd watch Cobra Commander hatch some diabolical plan, then immediately flip to the toy section and start planning your Christmas list. The genius was that it didn't feel like advertising. It felt like the most important television ever created. When they showed Snake Eyes doing that sick motorcycle jump, you weren't thinking commercial. You were thinking, I need that action figure right now, or my life is meaningless. By 1985, toy companies were basically financing entire animated series. Saturday morning TV became this beautiful, manipulative paradise where every cartoon was selling you something. And somehow, that made us love it even more. But if you thought toy commercials were manipulative, wait till you see what happened when Cabbage Patch Kids hit the shelves. Flashback 10. Cabbage Patch Riots and Toy Crazes. December 1983. The words Cabbage Patch Kids could literally start a riot. We're talking about grown adults trampling each other for dolls that came with crinkly paper adoption certificates and that weird new vinyl smell. Your mom drops you off at Zayre department store at 5 a.m. and there's already a line of desperate parents wrapped around the building. The store opens, and suddenly it's like Black Friday meets Lord of the Flies. Boxes flying through the air, women grabbing handfuls of dolls like they're hoarding food during the apocalypse. At one store in Pennsylvania, the manager literally had to brandish a baseball bat, just to protect himself from crazed parents trying to score a doll with the right hair color. Security cameras caught footage of grown adults wrestling over boxes, ripping adoption papers, screaming about limited supply. The sound of that chaos was unforgettable. The rustle of cardboard being torn open, the thud of shelves being emptied in seconds, and parents shouting names like Xavier Roberts, like he was some kind of toy god. If your local Toys R Us sold out in 3 minutes, your mom would start calling relatives in other states. Do you have any Cabbage Patch Kids in Ohio? I'll pay you back, plus shipping, plus $20. Some dolls were being resold for twice the retail price before Christmas even hit. 1983 taught us the true meaning of supply and demand, and parental desperation. It was our first taste of consumer hysteria, and honestly, it was terrifying and thrilling all at once. And through all of this chaos, we had one constant reminder to just say no. And through all this beautiful chaos, we had one squeaky voice cutting through Saturday morning cartoons to save our souls. Just say no to drugs, kids! In that unmistakable Pee Wee Herman voice that somehow made drug prevention sound like a game show. The weird thing? Most of us had never even seen drugs, but we knew to be absolutely terrified of them. Nancy Reagan had turned drug education into this massive cultural campaign, and suddenly every cartoon break featured celebrities telling us that strangers with candy were probably drug dealers in disguise. We'd be sitting there in our Transformers pajamas, spooning Fruity Pebbles, watching Mr. T explain why we should never do cocaine. Because apparently the same people who thought it was fine for us to breathe cigarette smoke on airplanes were deeply concerned about us accidentally trying marijuana. The irony was incredible. We lived in a world where adults chain-smoked through dinner and drove us around without seatbelts, but cartoon characters were our moral compass for saying no to substances we couldn't even pronounce. We trusted Pee Wee Herman to teach us about life choices, while our parents were literally poisoning us with secondhand smoke. By 1988, over 12,000 Just Say No clubs had formed nationwide. We were the most anti-drug generation in history, raised on a steady diet of PSAs and very real dangers we didn't even know existed. Here's the weirdest part about growing up in the 80s. We barely noticed how absolutely bizarre it all was. From breathing secondhand smoke during Happy Meals to staring at missing kids' faces over breakfast cereal, we just called it childhood. We were this strange generation caught between incredible freedom and constant fear. We raised ourselves after school, then practiced hiding from nuclear bombs. We played with actual weapons disguised as toys, then got lectured about the dangers of peer pressure by cartoon characters. You ever drink lukewarm water from a scorching hot garden hose while riding completely unrestrained in the back of a pickup truck watching your friend shoot bottle rockets at street signs? Then yeah, you get it. That was just Tuesday. Looking back, it feels like we survived some kind of beautiful, terrifying social experiment. We were tougher because we had to be, more independent because no one was watching, and somehow more innocent, despite being surrounded by dangers that would give modern parents panic attacks. We didn't have helicopter parents or participation trophies. We had house keys, quarters for payphones, and the absolute certainty that if we could just make it home before the streetlights came on, everything would be okay. If this unlocked a memory you haven't touched in decades, that metallic taste of fear mixed with the sweet freedom of being completely on your own, hit subscribe, because trust me, we're just getting started digging into the beautiful weirdness that shaped us into who we are today.